It's lovely to be here. I know I'm the last thing that's now standing between you and the bar, so I've got 40 slides. I'm going to try and get through in about 30 minutes. Before I start, who in the room has at some point in their lifetime at least read one copy of The Economist or opened it? Good, that's a good start, isn't it? Okay, I've got what I believe is a really lovely story for you guys today, because I'm going to show you how copywriting, great copywriting actually, combined with really smart media buying with our media buying agency, has won just 3 months ago, probably the highlight of my career actually. You'll see what we've won in a second ago. We've won awards with it, but what's really important is copywriting in this instance has solved probably the biggest problem that our CEO and our business had in the last 5 years. Does anybody know what this is? So this is what's known as a Cannes Lion, but it's not a normal Cannes Lion, it's a Cannes Lion for effectiveness. This year in June, 4,700 brands submitted an entry to win a Cannes Lion for effectiveness, and only 3 won. And I'm pleased to say that The Economist won. To prove it, there I am over there, the short guy in the picture. I don't know why, we seem to recruit tall people in our agencies, but anyway. Okay, so we're really proud that we've just won this thing. It's like the Oscars for us. We've been trying to do this for years, the first time we've ever won it. And here's how we did it. Little story for you. So let's go back to what The Economist really is. A lot of brands will tell you that they've got one USP, but we believe we've got 5 combined. We offer a global perspective. We're a trusted, finishable filter, by which I mean the internet is endless, and we produce this newspaper, which by the time you've read it from beginning to end, not necessarily all of it, you'll feel like you've learned everything you need to know that week that's important. We're a smart guide to the forces shaping the future, meaning we're very forward-looking. I'll show you why it's important in a second. We're an advocate of progress. We support liberal issues like gay marriage, equal pay, and we're premium priced. Now, if you take all those things together, you'll see why we're different from our competition. I'll name one of them. So if you looked at The Week, which is probably in our competitive set, you all know The Week magazine. The difference with The Week magazine is that they're not a smart guide to the forces that shape the future. They compile lots of information and lots of editorial from other magazines, which is basically editorial which has come from the previous week. They're not as forward-looking as we are. So you've got to take all these things together, and that's what we believe makes us so successful. We've always been profitable. The organisation is, unlike many of our competitors, which aren't profitable right now, we have consistently been profitable, and our circulation has grown and grown and grown. So we're in a really lucky position. And if you look back historically, like most media companies, our revenues were split 50-50 between advertising revenue, so taking money from brands like the likes of Rolex and others, to actually generating money from readers, people who are willing to buy a single issue or willing to buy a subscription to The Economist. And about 10 years ago, a little bit more, we saw some really tough times ahead. This was a chart in 2014, you'll see in Business Insider, that shows how newspaper advertising, not The Economist advertising, this was newspaper advertising, was dropping. And you can see the peak just before 2000, huge drop. Now, there's still a huge amount of money to be made there. I think it's $27 billion, I think. But you can see that if our business used to be 50% from advertising and 50% from readers, if we were going to witness something like that in one side of our business, it was blatantly obvious to us that if we were going to be as profitable as we've ever been before, we were going to have to generate more revenue in the other side of the business. A bit scary at that point in time. So we had this epiphany moment where we decided to look, and we said, well, let's look around. Let's see how many people are engaging with Economist content at this point in time. Not just people who are buying it, but people who just read an article every so often or click on a post on Facebook. And we saw that up to 12 million people on Twitter were engaging with us. We had 6.2 million on Facebook. So we sat and thought, actually, to build up the reader revenue side of our business might not be as difficult as we first envisaged. It looked like a huge task, but if we could get even a percentage of those to start subscribing, we'd be in a great place. So we did loads of research. We engaged lots of research agencies and came up with an audience profile, and we defined these people as the globally curious. And these were people, when we interviewed them, this is what they looked like. They were all forward-facing, keenly interested in events. They were really interested in technology. They were creative, optimistic. All these things. You can see there's not a demographic here. We're not talking about 25 to 40-year-olds. We're just talking about people who exhibit these behaviors. And we did a market sizing issue, and we said, well, if we're going to have to fill this advertising revenue, how big's the market of people we can go after? And you can see here that when we did the market study, 73 million people around the world fit that profile, which essentially meant that we knew there are 73 million people around the world who should be reading The Economist that aren't. Great. I mean, it's a great dilemma, but it's a real optimistic point, because we think if we can just get in front of these people, we can fill that gap, the ad revenue gap that we saw. This is English speaking first language. If you add in the people who speak English, but it isn't their first language, you get to 131 million people. Loads of people around the world that should be reading The Economist. Big epiphany moment for us, really kind of big light bulb moment that we can crack this. But we had a problem. So this is why I asked you if you'd read The Economist magazine before. We started doing lots of research groups with Abbott Mead Vickers, and I was actually in these groups. We got post-it notes, put post-it notes in front of people and said, can you just draw a picture, please, of who you think reads The Economist right now, and who we're writing The Economist for? And I should say, all these people that we got in the focus groups were globally curious people, interested in science, forward-facing. The people like everyone in this room, you should all be Economist readers, in my view. And this actually got drawn. His name's William. He's quite famous now in the company. He's obsessed with Bloomberg shares. He's at Bloomberg Terminal. There's another one. And look what they said. He wears a business suit. He hates his life. He studies economics. He works for Barclays. He's disillusioned. He's grey. He's got a bleeper that keeps warning that his stocks are down. And this was Jenny. I was actually in the groups. I know this wasn't made up because I saw these. So think of where we are now. We've seen that advertising revenue is going to dip. And we've seen that we've got a huge audience of people that should be reading us. But that audience of people thinks the magazine or the newspaper isn't for them. They think it's just about economics and it's just for bankers, when hopefully you've all read it and you know it's about much more than economics. It's about, there's books in there, there's arts, there's science, there's technology. So can you see our challenge? Frame as a challenge. So then we said, how are we going to solve this? In the old way of doing it, we'd have done things like that on the right-hand side. Really clever copywriting, absolutely nothing wrong with it, and that's actually brilliant in its time, amazing. But I heard Drayton talking about brand earlier. You can't do that on its own anymore, because how is that starting a conversation with anybody? You see that bus, no passengers. It's brilliant. It's really cool. You're probably all smiling at it. But how do I know if that's effective or not? I might get a brand agency to tell me everyone feels 2% more smiley about The Economist. But what hard metric have I moved? Drayton talked about metrics before, and I'll show you why that's important. So we thought about doing it like that, and then I thought, what's going to happen if I go into the CEO and do that? And I thought he'd probably do this. So we decided to do this instead, and we're going to get some copywriting in a second, but it's important you know the story. We decided to use all of what we call the upper funnel marketing channels to work combined for us in a holistic manner. And what we would do, we'd surface content. So we wouldn't, as we had done in the past, just do clever lines. Because there's one thing about telling people that The Economist is about more than economics, but there's another thing which is showing it. So we decided that everything we would do will be content-led. Everything would lead to content. And we're going to prove to people, these people who should be reading The Economist, that they really should be reading The Economist, because we'll surface content that's interesting to them. Everything will be trackable. We wouldn't do any of this stuff anymore. It is good, don't get me wrong, but it's not trackable, and therefore, as copywriters, as media agents, as marketing directors, everything we should be doing should be trackable, because you want to know how effective it is. And we agreed with ourselves that we'd try and use as much cutting-edge technology as we possibly could to be right at the forefront of marketing. Another perception problem with The Economist is that we're a 173-year-old media organisation. We need to change that perception, and one way of doing that is being right at the cutting edge of tech. we mapped out journeys, and it's really this simple. We just said we've got to just get people to answer these 3 questions. Why should I give it a go? Go on, I'll give it a try. Go on, I'll buy it. And all of our marketing premise was built around this. We started with why. The why was just get loads of ad units, just surface lots and lots of content, give people a reason to think, I'll give that a try. Push them to subscriptions, and if they don't subscribe, do some really clever things in terms of retargeting, and I'll show you those in a second, to keep hammering the message home, hammer it home, chase them around the internet until we've proved the case. This might not look, well, it's not the greatest chart in the world, but it's really important to show you. For the first time ever at The Economist, we recruited a tech and ops director. So we now have in our marketing team a tech and ops director because we were getting really sick of wanting to do really clever things and phoning IT, and IT saying, yeah, we'll add you to the queue, we'll sort it in 3 months. So we've now included a tech director. We also have a journey director. And then we decided we're going to try this right the way around the world. We didn't really have a choice. We couldn't test it because we saw the ad revenue was dropping. So it was kind of like now or never. Just go for it. You talked about 70, the innocent speaker talked about, if you're 70% sure, give it a go. Well, we were 70% sure, so we said, let's go all in. See all the countries down the left-hand side, all the different kind of tactics across the top. We use Outbrain, we use Facebook, we use online display, programmatic display, everything you can imagine. And this is the premise of what we really did. We said, let's find people who should be reading The Economist, use what we know about them. It could be anywhere in our database. Do we know they're interested in science or technology? And then deliver the right message at the right time, in the right place, and importantly on the right device. And this is where I think it probably gets quite interesting for you guys. So we knew we had ridiculously big boots to fill. You'll all have seen our white out of red advertising. It's brilliant. But as we said, it was time to move on. This isn't trackable. There's nowhere to click. It's quite difficult to start building relationships with people with this kind of stuff. So we did this instead. We created a proposition with one of our agencies. There is nothing more provocative than the truth, by which we mean we're going to tell you that The Economist is for you. We're going to tell you that The Economist isn't just about economics, and we're going to prove it in everything we do now in our marketing. So we started rolling out an online display with our copywriters, ads like this. So these ads, none of them were about economics. You'll notice I'm going to show you a whole raft of these in a second, but they are purely and simply designed to prove to people that we are about more than economics. They're short and they're sharp, and they're there to provoke a response. And the more people I can provoke to get a response, the more people I drive to economist.com, and the more of those lovely little things called cookies I get, which means I can start having a conversation with somebody. If I hadn't done it like that, I'm limiting the number of people I can have an ongoing conversation with. So we did loads of these things. This particular one was when there was a particular issue in the States with the cops shooting people. We did a breaking story when there was an issue with the CIA. And what's clever about these things, we've done thousands of these things, by the way, and I'll show you a few of them in a second. We've got one on science and tech here. I'm going to talk to you about that one in a second. Loads of different subjects on loads of different channels. So just to clarify before we move on to what's really clever about the copywriting, we take what we know about people, which audience segment is. We say, where are they in their journey with The Economist? And where are they browsing right now? All of those 3 things together. We then use some really clever technology in the middle to make sure, for example, if you look on the right-hand side, top right for Newsweek, I know somebody is now looking at Newsweek and reading a story about being tracked around the internet and whether or not that is something that should happen or shouldn't happen, and therefore I serve a contextual ad to that person knowing everything I know about them, so I'm relevant. So I'm not putting something in front of them that's taking them away from what they're already reading. I'm saying, I've identified that you're really interested in that topic, and I'm going to serve you an ad that proves to you that The Economist has got better things to say to you about that on that topic than you're reading right now. And then we push people to these hubs. This is quite important, I guess, not necessarily for copywriters, but I think it's important to note, we didn't push people to economist.com. We created an environment whereby all they could do was read our content. So imagine these people are cold. We've said they don't really know anything about The Economist right now. If we send them to economist.com, there's way too many things that they can get distracted on. There's ads, there's different businesses, there's a whole manner of things. But we created this thing so we're really clear in what we want to do. We're going to take you there, you read the article, and then you can either register or you can subscribe. And that's all you can do, because that's my key metric. If I don't get more subscribers, I might as well not be doing this. And this was a whole new approach. You can imagine how we had to change our business cycle at The Economist to make this work. We have daily meetings with editorial now. We've done thousands of ad placements. We can get turnaround with on the ads from the editorial team in a couple of hours. Loads and loads of A/B testing. I've seen lots of talk about A/B testing today. It's absolutely crucial. We believe in it hugely at The Economist. And so what does being provocative really mean? And I think this is what I really want to talk to you about today on Hammer Home. We've had loads of really nice comments. And obviously we won the award for the creative. You see my brother said this was the best advert of the election so far. I got my mum to write, this is pure genius, love it. That's all that. People have really been enjoying what we've been doing. And I think these are people that haven't really engaged with The Economist before. And here's some clues as to, I think, why, and I hope these resonate with you, some of them. So as a copywriter, I think sometimes it's as much about what you don't say as what you do say. And I think there's an onus, and we put this on the copywriters that work for us, to understand not only where that ad unit is going to point to. You've obviously got to have read the article to get the essence of the article, but also where is that going to go? Because in this instance, the story is so big that actually you only need 2 words on there, and you can really play on the story. You blank out the other words, do a really clever CTA. I mean, the copywriter in this instance, you know, his pounds per word written are quite high in this instance, aren't they? But it's fine. It's provocative. It's getting people to click, and it's taking the context of where this is going to be and making it clever for the context. This is one of my favourites. You saw before, we talked about the perception of The Economist and people thinking that it's really for kind of male CEOs. So we played on that. We said, let's create an ad unit that's going to make people think this is about you need to be male to be a CEO. But once you get there, you realise it's not about that at all. We've done some research, or some research was done that we covered in The Economist that shows it's actually the height of the CEO that matters, not whether he has balls or what have you. It's male or women. On average, CEOs are taller than the rest of us. So it's just it's a play on what people are expecting us to surface. Actually, when you get there, you realise that's not what we've surfaced. We've surfaced something completely different. Encourages people to click and click again. I really like that one. It's one of my favourites. Isn't that clever? So, as you can no doubt tell, this was an article that was talking about declining standards in English language. And I thought that's a really neat example of good copywriting. I tell you what's really funny, though, is after we did this, we created another ad unit that had a genuine spelling mistake in it. And because everyone thinks we're trying to be clever, and we probably are clever than they think they are, no one writes in about it. So I don't get any complaints if things are spelt badly. But clever CTA, you know, these CTAs are really small things. We could have just written, like, find out why, or click here, or something. But it's everything combined in the ad unit works really well. Regional differences are really important, so we really play on regional differences too. And we've got a team of people in New York who check all the ads for us, and Tut here wasn't going to work particularly well. Finger point is, believe it or not, what people say in the States. So geography is important to us. Then we encourage our copywriters and our media agencies to work together really closely. We don't, in many instances now, we won't have meetings with them independently. We want them both to turn up at the same time and ask them to present ideas that they both buy into from the outset. And I think you can see why here. And the one on the right is one of my favourites. So the copywriter who was writing this ad kept writing to us and saying, I want to say something after leaving you would lead to. And we kept having these debates about freedom and uncertainty and which words should I use. And then someone at the media agency said, well, you can just do one of these bingo things and spin it around, and then you can put all the words on it and we'll just play around with it. So that idea just came out of kind of a creative session where we were trying to solve a problem for a copywriter, because the media agency was there, and the media agency understood that you could do this actually in ad unit. We solved the problem together, and that was one of the best performing ad units we did for Brexit. That's a nice little one on the left too, I think. And then don't be afraid to use long form copy. Look at this. 42 words in 10 seconds. Bang. So we won some awards with that too. You've seen most of these. If we go back to the ones before, you've probably only got 7 or 8 words on here, and that's great, and it was wonderful copywriting to be able to do that. But if you want to write something long form, find an ad unit and find somewhere where you can do it and play around with it. And we did that, and this formed part of our Cannes submission actually. And this happens to be the first 3 sentences of the article on prostitution on the internet. So again, all leading back to content, and you click that button, it takes you through to where the article is. Right, and then there's this kind of stuff. You've seen so far, we're getting really clever, and it is so, in my mind, it's very easy to get carried away. And you're thinking, yeah, this is really clever, and we did puns and play on words. This happened to be, as you no doubt, you recognise that image? This was when the migrant boat tips over, really sad story. And this was just one. We get probably, for each set of 8 ad units, if we add up everybody's time, we did this the other day just to prove out, we probably as a team spend 100 hours, 100 man hours to create probably between 8 and 10 ad units that go to market. And behind that, there are loads more that never make it. That didn't make it. So play on Club Med. Who likes it, who doesn't? Anyone like it? Okay, we made the right decision then. So we did something like this. We still played with it. It was still a topic that we felt we needed to prove to people that we covered. But I think it was just done in a bit more of a tasteful fashion. So whichever brand you are, and we are known for our wit and our humour, and there's always a line. And I think we happen to have a really good team that we encourage them to continually push the envelope and try new things, but they're also really responsive when we say no. And that's really important for me, actually. I think that's a big brand values thing. And then we're obsessive about it. Now, once we saw this was working, the click-through rates are incredible. Really good click-through rates. So we just it's like a machine now. We did this about 6 or 7 weeks ago. We are churning these things out now at a rate of knots. It's really important to say that the editorial team approves every single one of these ad units. So it's not the days of old where there'd be church of state and the marketing team would go and do something and then the editorial team would never see it. We work closely together now. And on and on. And lots of them. Really, really some compelling ones in there. Okay, so Drayton talked about metrics earlier. We do everything. Everything is has a KPI attached to it at The Economist. You'll no doubt, because we won the award, it's probably quite obvious, but we did incredibly well on the prospects. So we said at the beginning of this campaign we were hoping to get 1 million new people to visit economist.com. So far we've got 6 million plus. Really, really pleased with that. Subscription is a bit more difficult. One thing I will say is that this has taught us to be patient. My hope was that I'd get someone to come to economist.com, and then I go and retarget them with a 12 for 12 offer, like the day after, and they'd part with £12. That just doesn't happen. It's a lot more difficult than that. But it's working. Drayton will hate this slide about brand. I was cringing. Okay, so we did some brand research. Any time that the red line is outside the black line on the spider chart means we've shifted the metric, and people now think The Economist is more international, more trustworthy, and really important, has content worth sharing, because that's free advertising for me. If I get somebody to click on one of those ad units and they send the article off for somebody else, I've got 2 people for the price of 1. Really important. And we've made it relevant. Remember right at the outset, people said it's not relevant for me, it's for William, the guy who's a bit miserable and looking at Bloomberg terminals. Something else as copywriters I think you should look out for. Make sure you ask your marketing director, or the person you're doing the work for, what it is that they are judging your work against. So take some of these examples here. This was an example that we talked about prostitution. It's brilliant, isn't it? Number 1 over there. But my aim isn't just clicks. I don't just want people to come to economist.com. I want them to subscribe. Look where it performs over there. It's only number 4. Similarly, on this side of it, you see retirement is number 3, which is this one here. Retirement is number 1 over there. I can show you a much wider display of ads. But I think it's important as a copywriter really understand what the key driver of the person you're working for is. Because if you optimize the wrong metric, you're going to keep throwing out stuff like prostitution when really we should be throwing out stuff like retirement. And it gets even more complicated because what we've found is that a certain type of creative performs very well in one channel, but not so well in another channel. So we talked about testing earlier, and A/B testing. Look at these. These are click-through rates for different ad units. One of the ad units here, this was in Outbrain, got a click-through rate of 0.07, but you can see exact same ad unit in Cadrian, which is a programmatic buying machine, got 0.12. So again, as a copywriter or anyone who's involved with a marketing director, make sure if he's quoting this number at you, just ask him how it's performing on the other channels, because it's not always as straightforward, and it's about being really clear on what the KPIs are, sorry. And then don't be frightened, and we've learnt this, we were to begin with, and we're not now. Don't be frightened to use stuff that isn't new. So, has anyone ever heard of the Big Mac Index, which The Economist is quite famous for? So this thing's been around for ages. We started doing this stuff, which was all kind of, this was for the election, it's very timely. One thing we have learned is that there's nothing wrong with putting timeless stuff out there. If it's really interesting, it's a really interesting topic, we now surface it, and it lasts for ages. Really good. Okay, so we've been successful. Yes, we've generated 6 million new prospects to economist.com, got loads of new learnings. We've generated a real buzz around The Economist. Not only have we got more subscriptions, but people are now, I've been asked to come and talk here today. Lots of my colleagues have been asked to talk in different places, and we're seen as a very forward-thinking media brand now, even though we're 173 years old. And what this has really done, and go back to the KPI point again, I think very senior people in organisations are becoming a little worried that they want to know how their brand investment is delivering. And doing it this way, KPIing everything, following metric after metric, has actually done something wonderful for us internally, that the CEO really now believes in brand marketing, or let's call it brand response marketing, which is what we do. So we've gone from a situation in which we weren't investing much in brand marketing to the point now we are investing more than ever before. Next year we're going to see an even a greater amount of advertising. We talked about Cannes over the last 18 months. What you've just seen in front of you has won over 50 awards now. We won 2 more yesterday. Really interesting to come and it's great to be able to come and talk to you about it. And this is great. This is when I knew we'd made it here. So this is what I've just described to you. These little ad units that we've been creating with copywriters and media people. Click on the button, you go through to the hub we talked about, and then we'll send you through to a subs page. Look what I found. The Week. Little ad unit. Funnily enough, the hub is not just an exact replica. Actually, the URL, to the point where the URL is exactly the same as well. We were explore.economist.com, and they are now exploretheweek.com. And you see the subs page is the same. So I think there's nothing wrong with people copying what you do. I think you've done a good job. The FT is also doing it now as well. And that's it, the end. Apart from, I've got a 2-minute video, which is the video we submitted to Cannes, which won the award. It explains everything I've just taken 30 minutes to talk about. So you're probably going to say, why did you bother talking for 30 minutes? You could have just shown me the video. But it's important. So anything that I said that didn't make sense, hopefully the video will show that. So here you go. Okay, it's me done. Thank you for listening.